Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's great to see everyone here this evening as we celebrate the best day of the week, and we celebrate Ellie Rosenblatt's Bat Mitzvah. To begin our service, we're honored to call upon Ellie's mother and grandmothers, as we rise for the blessings for the candles to begin Shabbat. Page 4.
O God and God of our ancestors, may the rays of these Shabbat candles cast their glow upon the earth and bring the radiance of your light to all your creatures. Bless our daughters with your love and our homes with the spirit of Shabbat.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner v'tzivanu lehadlik ner v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen.
And now let's open up our prayer books and we turn to page 5 as we welcome the angels of peace. Shalom Aleichem, Malchei Hasharet.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mimelechem, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelechem, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zeitchem Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
And now we skip to page 11. Lechuna Radana Ladonai, Naria Litzur Yeshenu.
Lechuna Radana, Lechuna Radana, Lechuna Radana Ladonai. Lechuna Radana, Lechuna Radana, Lechuna Radana Ladonai. Naria, Naria Litzur Yeshenu. Nekatmafana betoda, Naria, Naria, Litzur Yeshenu, Mizmirot Naria lo, Lechuna Radana, Lechuna Radana, Lechuna Radana Ladonai, Lechuna Radana, Lechuna Radana, Lechuna Radana.
Now let's continue in the middle of page 14. Yismachu Hashemayim, V'tagel Haaretz.
Yismachu Hashemayim, Yismachu Hashemayim, Yismachu Hashemayim, V'tagel Haaretz. Yismachu Hashemayim, Yismachu Hashemayim, Yismachu Hashemayim, V'tagel Haaretz. Yiramayam, 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 Lo, Yiramayam, 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 Lo, Yismachu Hashemayim. Yismachu Hashemayim,
well as synagogues throughout the Jewish world, welcome the Sabbath bride. We do the same with the words of Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, page 23.
שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השפיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה, לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה כי היא מקור הברכה. מראש מכן מנסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. We rise and face the door. דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום מטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, כוכב עודי עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה.
And you may be seated. And now let us continue to offer praise to Adonai with the words of Tov Lahadot Ladonai, the top of page 27.
טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר, ולזמר, ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר, ולזמר, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינור. טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר, ולזמר, ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר, ולזמר, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני.
And now we invite all those in mourning and all those observing a yurtzeit to rise for the words of the Mourner's Kaddish, page 30. Yitzgadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach yirteh v'yalmik machuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayeh dekol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kari v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach li'olam omeamaya. Yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yitba'ar v'yitroma v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudusha b'richu le'ela min kol berkata v'shirata tushbekata v'nechemata damiram v'yama v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya V'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. And we now ask everyone to please rise for the Baruch Hu, page 39.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Please be seated. Continue with Ahavat Olam. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Beit Yisrael, Amechavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limata, Al ken Adonai Eloheinu, B'shochveinu, B'shochveinu, V'tumeinu, Nasiach, Nasiach, Nasiach B'chokecha, Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Beit Yisrael, Amechavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limata, V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, U'mitzvotecha le'olam va'er, Ki heimecha hayenu ve'orech yameinu, U'vahem negei yomam v'layla, Ve'avadecha, Al tasir mimenu le'olamim, Baruch ata Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael. Turn to page 41 as Eli leads us in the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha vechayu hadvarim ha'eleh Asher Anochi Metzavecha Hayom Alevavecha Veshinatam Levanecha Vedibartam Bam Beshivtecha Bevetecha Uvelechtecha Vaderech Uveshokbecha Uvkumecha Ukshartam leot al yadecha, vechayu letatofo beinenecha, uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha.
And our very special song, And You Shall Love.
And you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And these words which I command you this day, you shall take to heart, to heart. Teach them diligently to your children, and recite them at home and away, night and day. Bind them as a sign upon your hand, Inscribe them on the doorposts of your homes and of your gates. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha nafshecha umeyodecha. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might.
We continue silently, page 42. Adonai Elohechem Emet. And we turn to page 44 as Eli leads us in Mi Chamocha.
Chamocha ba'el, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh nora, nora, nora tehilot. Oh, say, Phelem, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh nora, nora, nora tehilot. Oh, say, Phelem, malchu harav banecha, bokei hayam livnei Moshe.
Turn to page 45 as Cantor Rachel Goldman joins me in Hashkivenu, a melody which I composed for her 4 years ago. בצל כנפיך תסתירנו. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים. ברוך אתה אדוני הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים. And we invite Ellie to come back and lead us in Vishamru, page 46.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. B'nai Israel, oti le'olam, v'shamru b'nai Israel et ha-shabbat, la'asot et ha-shabbat le'dorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-shabbat, la'asot et ha-shabbat le'dorotam berit olam. V'ayom hashvi'i Shabbat v'yinafash
now we continue silently with the silent Amidah, page 47 through page 52.
We turn to page 51 and we join in Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim le'olam. Ki ata hu melech adon l'kol hashalom. Ki ata Shalom, Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim le'olam. V'tov be'enecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל השלום. And we invite you to put your arms around each other and we all sway to Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom, Oseh Shalom bimromav, Uyaseh Shalom aleinu, Shalom aleinu, aleinu yachol Yisrael. שלום, עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, שלום עלינו, עלינו ויעקב ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עלינו ויעקב ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
Tonight, there are many things to pray for, but we always, as Jews, pray for health, for those we love. And we also, this evening, think about those we may not even know, whether they're in Ukraine or in Israel. We ask God to give them all a healing of the mind, body, soul, and spirit. We ask God to give them a refuah shlema, as the cantor leads us in the Misha Berach prayer, found in the inside back cover of our Sidurim.
שבירך אבותינו, מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing for us and all of those we love. Yishebeirach imotenu, mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
And please be seated now as we continue with the Kaddish Shalem, page 54.
Yikara v'yikara shemei Rabbah. Be'alma diverahi rute, be'amlich malhute. B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol be'Yisrael. B'gala uvizman kariv, be'imeru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevora, le'alam ulal me'omaya. Yibarach, yibarach v'yishtabach Pa'ari Roma Vitnase, Vitadar Vitale Vitalal, Shemei de Kudisha, Brihu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tishbechata v'nechemata, Da'amiran be'alma, ve'imaru amen. Tidgabel slo hon uva'ot hon dechol Yisroel, Kodam avu hon devishmaya, ve'imeru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisroel, ve'imeru amen. Oh, say shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisroel, ve'imeru amen.
100 years ago, when Judith Kaplan became the first American girl to have a bat mitzvah ceremony on March 18, 1922, at the Society for the Advancement of Judaism, she had no idea that her actions would change Jewish communal life forever. But something unexpected happened along the way. As increasing numbers of girls ascended the bima, girls and women began to expect and demand access to ritual honors and synagogue leadership. Bat mitzvah first were a catalyst for expanding all women's participation in Jewish life and paved the way for young women to mark their coming of age in new and inclusive ways. As you'll soon see, there's no more appropriate person, not just here at Beth Yeshurun or in Houston, but perhaps in the world, to speak more about the first bat mitzvah than our own Dr. Daniel Musher. It's now my honor to welcome Dr. Musher to the Bima.
Thank you, Rabbi and Ellie. Thanks. I'm glad to have an opportunity to share your bat mitzvah with you. The rabbi already took away my opening comments, and he hadn't even seen them. So we'll see what I have to do. It is true that it was 100 years ago, my grandfather, Mordecai Kaplan, called his oldest daughter, my Aunt Judith, to read from the Chumash on Shabbat morning at what was the first ceremony ever in which a girl became a bat mitzvah. My mother, the younger sister, followed 2 years later, and from those humble beginnings came the bat mitzvah ceremony, which is now observed in all Reform, Reconstructionist, and conservative synagogues, and in one form or another in many Orthodox ones as well. Rabbi Strauss graciously invited me to speak on the subject. There have been many articles in the press. I hope that you've read some of them. I decided to address with you briefly tonight the question of what motivated my grandfather to do this. And I may have some insight into the subject beyond what has appeared so widely in the Jewish press. So let's begin, in fact, with my grandfather's father, Rabbi Israel Kaplan, whom I never knew. He was a well-known scholar who traveled from one yeshiva to another until that's what they did in those days in the old country. The scholars traveled from one yeshiva to another to study, and their wives had stayed home and worked and raised the children. And that was what life was like in the late 19th century. My grandfather did that until he was invited to New York around 1887 to become assistant to the de facto chief rabbi of the Orthodox community. Back in Vilna, my grandmother ran a store to support her 2 children and to supervise the equal education of these 2 children. And that was most unusual because my grandfather was one and the other was a sister, my great Aunt Sophie. It was most unusual in those times for a girl to receive an education the same as a boy. Jewish girls simply didn't learn Hebrew. They didn't study Torah. They didn't learn what boys were taught. So my grandfather, from his early childhood, was exposed to an atmosphere of egalitarianism. When his first daughter was born in 1910, he began by educating her in the same fashion as he did with all his 4 children, who happened to be daughters, and in the same fashion as his father had raised his sister. So this is probably some insight that you were not aware of, that my grandfather's home was egalitarian from his childhood. Now, I want to drop back to 1889, because this is also relevant. That was the year that my grandmother, my grandmother brought, let me see if I can get this straight. My great-grandmother brought my grandfather and my great-aunt on a ship leaving from Marseille. It was July of 1889. So what was happening in July of 1889? It was the 100th anniversary of Bastille Day. And my grandfather was a kid. He was 8 years old. He was on a French ship, the 100th anniversary of Bastille Day, and there were fireworks. His mother, my great-grandmother, was a very stern woman. And he wanted to go up and watch the fireworks. He was just a kid. And she said, "That's not for us Jews." Now think of the irony of that. They're coming to a democratic country to escape what was going on in Europe, what had gone in Europe for generations. They're coming to a democratic country, and my great-grandmother is telling my grandfather, well, we don't do that. My grandfather was later to say that this was the beginning of his philosophy of Jews living in two civilizations. And I think that's terribly important, and it is relevant to the bat mitzvah, which I'll come back to in a moment. So as someone who was raised in two civilizations, my grandfather participated in writing a book called The Faith of America, in which he teamed up with a professor of Christian philosophy at Williams University, and they wrote prayers that were appropriate for the American holidays. That's how devoted he was to American civilization. His devotion to Jewish civilization was, of course, astonishing. He was strictly observant in his practice throughout his life. He never rode on the Sabbath. He certainly never ate food that wasn't kosher. He was in shul as he was supposed to be. And I emphasize that because I can't say that a lot of his followers are the same or even know that fact. So he was really totally committed to both civilizations. And I think that this describes how Carol and I tried to raise our three children with a deep commitment to Judaism and to the American civilization. So now I return to the subject of the bat mitzvah, 1922, 100 years ago. Young Judith Kaplan, 12 years old, that's the age of adulthood for young women, as declared in the Mishnah. For boys, it's 13. Boys are a little less mature, as everybody knows. What had happened in American civilization as my Aunt Judy was growing up? The women's suffrage movement was finally successful, and Congress passed the 19th Amendment, giving women an equal right to vote in 1920. So Grandpa was truly living in two civilizations. He had been raised to finally accepted women to be able to vote, finally gave women rights. So it was in both of his civilizations that he was seeing an egalitarian tendency. And I believe it was the convergence of these factors that led him to ask my young aunt whether she would be willing to come up to the front of the synagogue after her 12th birthday and read a section from the Chumash, not from the Torah itself. He hadn't moved that rapidly yet, and to give a translation of it, which she agreed, and I think she was not 100% happy with the idea. No 12-year-old girl wants to get up and show off in front of a whole congregation doing something that nobody ever done before. But that really was what happened with the first bat mitzvah. In accord with my grandfather's views that Judaism was an evolving religious civilization, there should be evolution, not revolution. And therefore, it was several decades before our synagogue in New York started to give women aliyot. In between, there were occasions when girls were called up to the Torah, and there was one young woman who had read the Shirat Yam, the song of Moses crossing the Red Sea, the Sea of Reeds. She read that for her bat mitzvah, and she was invited back for subsequent years to read the Torah for that portion. But in general, girls had a bat mitzvah, and then that was the end of their participation in Jewish services. So it took some time before my grandfather got his followers, his congregation, to accept the notion that if you've done that, then the young girls, as they grow up, become women, young women, they should be called back to the Torah for aliyot. And it was then another couple of decades before the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College ordained the first woman rabbi. Congregation Beth Yeshurun now has Rabbi Sarah Fort sitting on our bima, and Cantor Goldman arriving soon as we say farewell to our Cantor Mayor Finkelstein. I should state that our daughters, Carol's and my daughters, received the same Jewish education as our son Benjamin. Many of you have heard Benjamin read Torah and daven in the sanctuary, You haven't heard Rebecca and Deborah do that because they live in different cities. Rebecca has served as the cantor for the High Holy Days at Congregation Orami for the past 30 years. I think that's the longest standing pulpit in the city. And Deborah has prepared numerous boys and girls to come benot mitzvah. So, Ellie, you see that you fit in very well with the occasion, the 100th anniversary, as you celebrate your bat mitzvah tonight. Shabbat Shalom.
Daniel, thank you. It's important for all of us to know the tradition and the history, not just for adults, but especially our children, that there's a lot of history that goes into things that we take for granted in this day and age, that a young woman can come up to the bima. We take it for granted, but it is hard to believe not too long ago it wasn't something that was taken for granted. So thank God we can do that today, and I encourage our young to continue to speak to people like Dr. Musher and to learn more about what happened. Thank you, Dr. Musher. And now let's continue in our prayers, page 56 for the Elenu.
Aleinu leshaveach la'adon hakol la'tekeru la'leotzer breshi shelo asanu kigoyeh haratzon velo samanu kamishpaho hamon shelo sam helkenu kahem vegor aleinu kehol hamona ve'anachnu korim Mishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamalchim hakadosh baruch hu shehu notei shamayim beyosed haaretz umoshev yekaro bashamayim mima'al ushhinatu zo begavhei meromim
And now we invite again all those in mourning, all those observing the Yurtzeit to remain standing for the words of the mourner's Kaddish. And this week at Beth Yeshurun, we offer condolences to the families of the 11 victims of terrorism in Israel this past week. David Bergewin, Nina Brown, Rebecca Zabahayan Di Bejan, Rick Kaminsky, Meyer Proler, Manya Gelman, and Nelly Kazakevich. The words of the mourner's Kaddish, page 58. Yitkadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah, v'yalmad divrach yirteh v'yalmik machuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayeh dekol beit Yisrael, v'agalav v'zman kari v'yemru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam omei amaya. Yitzbarach v'yishtabach v'yitzba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudusha b'richu. Le'ela min kol berkata v'shirata, tishbechata v'nechemata, da'amiram v'yalma v'yimru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimru, amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimru, Amen. And you may be seated. So we have one anniversary to celebrate this evening. Celebrating their 17th wedding anniversary, Jennifer and Doug Rosenzweig. And Doug and Jennifer, you're very grateful for this past year. We were able to sneak in a family vacation before COVID wreaked havoc with Jacob's bar mitzvah back in August. He still did an amazing job, and you were finally able to celebrate with him and family and friends with a party back in December. And though you all had COVID over winter break, everyone, thank God, is in good health. And both kids will be at Beller High School next year. And you're looking forward to another family simcha in May and a couple of fun family vacations this summer. All things considered, not a bad 17th year. Doug and Jennifer, we thank you for all you do for our community. And Jennifer, how blessed we are to have you as our program director. And so much of what happens here in our congregation happens because of Jennifer and all of her hard work and commitment to our community. Jennifer and Doug, we hope that God continues to bless the two of you with more happiness and peace and only simchas in the years ahead as you celebrate your 17th wedding anniversary. Mazel tov. So a few announcements I wanted to share with you. At the end of our service, our oneg will be outside in the sukkah courtyard. As Passover begins just 2 weeks from tonight, as we often do, we haven't done now for a few years, we often ask if you have an empty seat at your Seder. Let Abby know in our office, Abby Rotenberg, let her know if you've got an extra seat. We often get calls from people of all ages who need a place to go. They don't have any to go. They don't have any family here or friends. They want to have a place to go for a Seder. So if you have an extra seat, call our office, let us know, because we do get calls from people looking for places to go for first or second night of Passover. A few other big programs we have coming up. Go to our website. I just want to point out just a few. This Sunday at 4 p.m., Rabbi Fort will be leading a program making memories with grandfriends and grandkids, where grandfriends and grandkids will come together for a little Jewish learning crafts with Rabbi Fort. And you can register on our website calendar to join. Our sisterhood has two wonderful programs coming up in preparation for Passover. This Sunday, they'll be welcoming a local nutritionist, haroset and healthy eating for Passover, an opportunity to prepare and sample haroset recipes for the upcoming holiday in a healthy way. And on April 6th, this upcoming Wednesday, the sisterhoods of Beth Yeshurun, Beth Israel, and Emmanuel, along with the American Jewish Committee, will come together to host a Women in Diplomacy program. It's really incredible that here in Houston, we have consul generals, all women, of Mexico, Israel, Canada, and Norway. And they'll have an opportunity to come together to learn what it's like to be a woman in this very important and challenging field. And that'll be this upcoming Wednesday night. You can RSVP on our website. And speaking of Passover, if you're looking for a Passover meal to go for your Seder, our Beth Yeshurun catering department has a wonderful meal for you. And we have two preparation Seders, if you will, coming up a week from this Sunday. A women's chocolate Seder next Sunday afternoon, April 10th, and then a men's community Seder that'll be hosted by me and other rabbis in our community with our friends at United Orthodox Synagogue. They'll be next Sunday evening. You can RSVP for both. They both should be a lot of fun, and I hope to see you at the men's Seder a week from this Sunday. And finally, at the end of this month, we'll be having our Beth Yeshurun family retreat. And they'll be back on. We haven't had it for several years. We'll be at Moody Gardens in Galveston, an opportunity to be with some of your clergy and other fun activities and celebrations, and a chance to enjoy Moody Gardens and have a very special Shabbat. There's more information on our website. It's a retreat you don't want to miss, and that's April 29th and April 30th. And just two more announcements I want to mention. First, really probably the most important announcement, I wish Mazel Tov again to our wonderful bat mitzvah, Ellie. Beautiful job tonight, Ellie. Absolutely terrific. I love your rendition of You Shall Love. That was beautiful. Such a beautiful voice. And what an honor it is to hear you to lead all of our prayers this evening. And it's nice for me knowing your mother, Robin, for many years back in college, back in Austin. And, of course, Kevin, Beth Yeshurun means a lot to you. You were bar mitzvah here at Beth Yeshurun just a couple years ago in our Baruch Sanctuary. And now to come back with your oldest child here at Beth Yeshurun, graduate of our day school, and have your two other kids here. One day they'll be up on the bima here at Beth Yeshurun to have their b'nai mitzvah. So we look forward, Ellie, tomorrow as you officially become a bat mitzvah. We'll be together in the Baruch Sanctuary tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. We'd love to see you. And I want to wish Mazel Tov also to the other family members that are here, two very proud grandmothers. And it's an honor to have you here, along with uncles and aunts and cousins. Have your cousins back from college, from Swarthmore and UT. It's good to see you too as well, and so many family members and friends that are gathered here this evening. And finally, I want to welcome everyone that's here, and a special welcome again to our new cantor and her husband. First, Chris. Chris, you raise your hand. I don't know if everyone's met Chris. Chris is Cantor Goldman's husband, a real mensch, and I hope you have a chance to get to know him tonight. And of course, you'll have an opportunity to get to know him really well in the next few years. So Chris, it's great to have you here. And of course, to welcome Cantor Rachel Goldman back. It was a little sneak peek this evening. She was here last night for our Cantor's concert. And Rachel, we cannot wait to get to know you more, to have you lead us in davening, to help us connect with God in our prayers. And we look forward to welcoming you this summer as you officially become our senior cantor. And last night, I have to say, we've had incredible concerts over the years at Beth Yeshurun. For decades, we are known for our concerts. But I have to say, last night was over the top. Having you here, Rachel, the other cantors, and of course, our beloved cantor Meir Finkelstein. It was one of a kind. Absolutely just a beautiful, beautiful night. To hear the dedications to you, Meir, the legacy that you've left us and other congregations throughout the country, it was a very special night that I know will be remembered for years to come here. And know that you'll always have a home here. You'll always have a place here, whether you're here or not. And we know you'll come visit. But I know Cantor Goldman, like so many cantors throughout the Jewish world, loves singing your melodies. And they will last really forever. His melodies really touch congregations all over the world, and they'll continue to be with us for many years to come, that I know Rachel Goldman will continue to teach and to lead us in. So Mayor, thank you. And I know I see Lori here, Lori Herzog, and I don't know if Carrie's here tonight, Carrie Hoffman, and two of our chairs along with Julie Kaplan, and of course Jennifer Sutton, all of our staff, Jennifer Rosenzweig, and I see Cheryl here, and other staff members, Philip back there. Just, we are so blessed about the Yeshurun to be able to put on what we did last night. So I look forward to future programs now that, thank God, this pandemic is ending, God willing, for good, and we can have big programs like it was last night, having almost 1,000 people here with a full Bark sanctuary. It was really, really, really nice. First time in several years. So thank you to all those who made last night happen. So to end our service, I see a few of our children here, including Ellie's brother and sister. So I want you guys to come up, and any of other of our children, come on up, help Ellie lead us in the B'nai Mitzvah, in the Kiddush. So any of our children that are here, come on up. We'd love to have you to help us in the Kiddush. And as some of our children come up that are here, let's bless our children that are here. For our boys, we say, Yisimcha Elohim ke'Ephraim ve'ke'Menashe. May God bless our boys like Ephraim and Menashe and all the good boys of our tradition. And for our daughters, we say, Yisimek Elohim Kasara, Rivka, Rachav, Leah. May God bless our daughters like Sarah, Becca, Rachel, and Leah. And may God bless all of our children always with peace. And let us say, Amen. And now please rise for the Kiddush and the Hamotzi.
Baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch Shemo.
Eloheinu melech haolam, borei beri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzah banu, v'shabbat kodsho, be'ahava uvratzon, hinhilanu, zikaron lema'aseh bereshit, ki hu yom tehillah, lemikra kodesh, zeher letziyat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'harta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol hamim, ve'shabbat koshdecha, be'achava uvratzon, hinhaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Kadesh HaShabbat. Amen.
Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom.